Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 164 of the Terminal City FC podcast, part of the Area 51 Sports Network. Josh Ray joined alongside Nathan Durk. As per usual, Happy New Year to you all. Hope you had a good Christmas, good holidays. We're back and locked and loaded, locked in, whatever you want to call it, for this year. We're live on the Terminal City FC YouTube, Area 51 Sports Network, Twitter, and Facebook pages. So it's January. And the Vancouver Whitecaps still don't have a new coach and still don't have any players yet. And time's ticking because players report this Saturday.
Yep.
Training camp, well, it's mostly fitness, but it begins in a few days. They fly to Marbella, Spain for the exclusive training camp on the 14th. So no new head coach yet, but it seems they're close into naming a guy.
Yeah. We had talked, speculation about all the possibilities, who's available, who is going elsewhere, all the different jobs that were available in MLS. Both you and I had kind of tossed the idea that Schuster might do something a little bit different and start looking at some of his old connections back in Europe, specifically back in Germany. It does look like that is the way things are going.
Yeah.
So right now, there's no names, but out of the pool of, I think it was about 5 that he was looking at.
Yep.
His top choice didn't go. Unfortunately, a bigger job opened up elsewhere before they actually got to contract talks. So it was more just kicking tires at that point. So we're off to whoever's next.
Yeah, and J.J. Adams of the Province Vancouver Sun. I'm going to bring up the article here for you all watching the live stream. He spoke with Axel Schuster, and he wrote that Axel said, yeah, he's been very careful. Had another candidate would be very close, and he wants to, doesn't want to jump the gun, as he pretty much said. And JJ speculated that that coach seemed likely to be Stefan Baumgart, former Hamburger SV coach, and now the coach of Union Berlin.
You know what? I'm trying to think, but not last year, but the year before. Didn't these two teams play in Marbella?
They did.
They did, didn't they? So there is a connection there as well. The one thing while we're waiting is Schuster did mention he is looking at people that he has worked with before. So obviously we're looking at connections in minds. We're looking at connections with Schalke. That doesn't necessarily mean we're looking at a previous head coach. It could be someone that was managing U18s or, one of the reserves or things like that, right? There is definitely a talent pool that Schuster has worked with. I mean, this is a guy that's been involved in the game for well over, we've got to be coming up 3 decades.
Yeah, so, and here, as I highlighted, coach with proven success developing youth, but hasn't been a senior team head coach. One with MLS experience and one with global experience.
Yeah.
So, and I would like to think that the guy with MLS experience is Jim Curtin.
The name's still available. And right now in the MLS coaching race, there's only 2 teams looking for coaches.
Vancouver and
both in Canada.
Yep.
Yeah. I am surprised that Jim Curtin is still available this close to the preseason when you consider that there was 5, 6,
7
jobs available. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like to think Curtin wants to choose his next job carefully.
I think he does too. This season could end up with Curtin not working at all right now. He could be
maybe he could take some time off.
Again, that would not surprise me as well. He spent a lot. It was close to a decade at Philadelphia.
Over a decade.
Was it over a decade?
I think so, and that was pretty much his hometown club.
It's a bit of a slap in the face, and the way he left, like it was just, it didn't sit well with a lot of people. I can understand someone wanting to take a bit of time away from the game, reset, figure out priorities, figure out where you want your family to be, and then go from there.
So
moving from Philadelphia to Vancouver is pretty big. Yes, it's the
Yeah.
same league, but we're talking, coast to coast.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Curtin's, just still heartbroken over losing his dream job and take the year off, spend time with his
You,
family.
I know because Curtin also comes from a playing background, but was that his first head coaching job?
I think it was because I remember he came in as an intern with
I'm
the.
looking at him, and I'm looking at parallels with Vanni Sartini, with Vancouver Whitecaps being his first head coaching job. You're right. That's there's something about your first, right?
Yeah,
Whatever that may be, first job, first kiss, first whatever, right?
I
I mean,
mean,
that it sticks in your head, right?
and
And then you got to
MLS is
figure out. You're
hometown
like,
club
well,
too.
what went wrong, right?
Yeah, like he's from the Philadelphia area,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
might say. But other than that, I maybe that MLS coach with experience isn't Curtin. Maybe it's Gio Savarese, who has been out of a job since he got the boot at Portland.
Which I would not be surprised about at all.
Yeah, but I
I
mean,
would not be surprised. He was one of the guys that we had on our list as well, because he's basically just been working with like Apple and doing stuff.
yeah, they gave him like Giovanni's corner, or whatever it's freaking
Yeah,
called.
yeah, better than coach's corner, right?
Yeah,
That's already been
and
tainted enough.
so I mean, time's ticking.
Yeah,
I would expect a new coach to be announced this week. I expected one to be announced by this time. So
I know.
work permits and all
Axel had
that.
always said that they're hoping to have a coach before preseason kicks off. I was hoping before New Year's. Again, if your first choice ends up moving to, one of the
Staying
teams
in
in
Germany,
Bundesliga, well, then I get it, right? But as much as I want a coach named before preseason starts, I have faith that the coaching staff that is still there, D'Agostino and all them, they can run the show. I mean, they pretty much know what they're doing. But you need someone at the helm. You need someone that's setting the direction, that's setting the new philosophy, that's figuring out, okay, if these are the ingredients, how are we going to cook, right?
Yeah, and preseason is important time because that's when you really work on the system, tactics, everything else, player fitness.
Absolutely.
That's why you
And
need a coach before preseason.
And we know it's going to be different because it's a new guy coming in. You need that new guy as early as possible.
And it's a bit concerning. There's been a lack of signings too because MLS clubs are making signings and trades and all that. The Whitecaps haven't because they have no new coach.
One thing
So,
Axel did let slip is that there is a possible attacking player
yeah,
in the near
two
future.
apparently they're looking
Yeah.
at.
The two, I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, but there's been some outgoings. For the
There has
Whitecaps.
been. We know Fafa Bicol is
He's
gone.
gone to Inter Miami.
Yeah, because
Gonna play with Lionel Messi.
that's what happens with Whitecaps players. That's where Julian Kressel went, right?
Yep. Levante Johnson found a new home.
Yep.
He's playing for the Colorado Switchbacks of the USL, and their head coach pretty much said he fits the profile. So
Good for him.
best of luck to both Fafa Pico and Levante Johnson.
Yep. And Daber Caicedo has made that move to junior permanent.
It's not 100% confirmed yet, but
Not 100%. There is a 1 million transfer fee attached, but I mean, with the amount of time that he spent with junior, it's also his home country. It's got to get done very quickly.
Yeah, and I just think he didn't really fit Vanni Sartini's system.
You know what? It was weird when he came back.
Yeah, it was weird
because it was like having a new player, but you still don't really know where he fits. He is a good player.
Yeah, he's got talent.
You're right. He never really fit into Vanni Sartini's system. I mean, I still go back to that weird experiment of trying him as a wing back and just thinking like they tried to figure out where to put him and just did not work.
Yeah. And as Edgar from the News Across the Galaxy podcast puts out, congratulations to Brian White for the call up to Team USA. Yep. Brian White been called up by Maurizio Pochettino for the January camp.
This happened last year as well, right?
So it's the second straight year.
Yeah, and it's always the January camp. Now, it's interesting because the January camp, especially with USL, is always where you kind of bring in the new blood, the young guys.
It's pretty much all MLS guys.
Yeah, or all elements. But the fact that they brought in Brian White, who's not a young guy anymore, they brought in a few really, really aging veterans as well. Players that hadn't been called up, that used to be called up all the time, hadn't been called up in a number of years. But yeah, good for Brian White. It's nice to at least, he gets to hopefully if they play a few friendlies. I'm not too sure if they have any in their schedule or not.
Yeah,
But
I believe they do because I remember last year
they did. They
there were
had
like one or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I know January is not really a traditional time for any sort of window, so you got to kind of pick and choose who you actually play against.
Yeah, and he'll join training camp and preseason a bit later due to USA duties.
Yep.
So,
but you're right. Whitecaps are thin, especially up front.
Yeah, since Fafa's gone, another attacker is needed. Luckily, Axel did say on AFTN that's being addressed. And I know some Whitecaps fans on Whitecaps Twitter are saying, oh, we should go after Johnny Russell from SKC. He's close with Ryan Gauld. But here's the thing. He's 34 years old.
I know, right? I mean, do we not learn our lesson with Damir Krylak?
Exactly. And while Krylak and Russell are more different type of profile players, Russell's like an all-out attacker. Like, sure, let's say they sign Johnny Russell and he becomes like Fafa Pico, but like this guy's 34.
But that's a lottery. I mean, you're hoping for a guy to have his best season when he's heading into his mid-30s.
Very unlikely.
The Whitecaps got lucky with Fafa, and I'm happy they had the year with him. I also, and I might be in the minority here, I don't have a problem with Fafa leaving.
Me neither.
Because you're hoping to strike gold twice, digging in one area. Be happy you got one, and then part ways. I am no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like having the Krylak.
Also, you take a look at Fafa's record last year. He had 2 periods throughout the season where pretty much all his goal creations came from. Everything else was dead.
Yeah.
He was unbelievably streaky. And yes, he did well if you look at the season as a whole. But if you start kind of parsing it through and you start looking at all these things, I mean, tell me what he did in the last month and a half. Tell me what the entire team did in the month and a half. But even at the very beginning of the season, like he had 2 periods in the middle of the season where everything happened.
And let's not forget in June, Tom Boger reported that he wanted to head back east.
Yeah.
And Vanni Sartini pretty much said, oh, yeah, I talked with him and convinced him. And now that Vanni Sartini's gone.
Yeah, you had to get him into the system. And you know what? To their credit, they did. And it paid off. But, I mean, you even remember how you and I were talking at the beginning of the season. We were looking at, especially the pairing when the two were playing on the left with him and Alessandro Schopf. And it was like Fafa, like literally stealing the ball from Schopf. And we're like, don't get me wrong. We're not really high up on Alessandro, but yeah, this isn't working. So I'm happy that he was able to find his way. I hope he continues to find his way in Miami.
Yeah, and back at Johnny Russell here, like I get like, oh yeah, this is a big name in MLS, but I don't want another guy who's like in the twilight of his career, like Damir Krylak.
I want a guy who's mid-20s. He's got a number of seasons under his belt, and he's still looking at an upward trajectory, right?
Yeah. Or maybe someone like who's approaching 30 like Julian Gressel was.
That too, where you could still get feasibly 3-4 years.
Yeah, and with January, it's hard to get players in, because a lot of leagues go August to May. But there are leagues across the world that go calendar year, particularly Brazil, South America, and Asia, like Korea, Japan. That's somewhere I'd like Whitecaps to look at.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other teams looking at Korea as well. I mean, look at the young phenom that Tottenham signed that is now joining in January.
Yeah, and I mean, the J League is producing some good talent too. And
J League is, I think, in terms of like there are different levels in the number of teams. It's the fastest growing area for football in the world right now.
Yeah, and should we be concerned the Whitecaps haven't done anything yet? Yes, I mean, typical Vancouver Whitecaps, Vancouver sports. what's the doomsday scenario? Oh, everything's going wrong and everything. Yeah, it is concerning that a coach has not even been named yet, but Axel did give hope to that it's close.
I
I was
want the
kind of
coach first.
the coach needs to happen
I
first.
need the coach first because I want them to have at least. I mean, I know they're not the one signing the players, but I want them to at least have a say to say like, yes, this guy will actually fit what I want to do, or no, let's pass him like elsewhere.
What I'm hoping is the coach is announced and then a domino of Whitecaps news is announced, mainly for the content
Yeah, that'd be
for
nice.
us. Because we need some Whitecap stuff.
Yeah, but anyway, like we talked about, so they're going to be flying to Marbella, Spain, January 14th, I believe. 10 days after that, they have one preseason game actually scheduled. It's against the Polish side, Rako. Oh, I'm going to butcher this.
I don't think
Shestochua.
Rako says Choa. I don't know.
Like
I
half
think
my family is Polish. I should know this. Anyway, a team doing very, very well in Poland. I think they're second in the top division right there, only a couple of points behind the first place. So you take a look where they were playing like teams in, Austria, teams in the second division of the Bundesliga, Poland. Poland is a good test, right? And this is a good team.
Yeah. You got to play against these teams in preseason.
Yeah.
Oh, Edgar also asked us, any word on the future of the Caps as far as ownership issues? I don't want to see the Caps move. Axel did
we don't
say
either.
on AFTN, this is going to take up to a year, this whole ownership thing.
Absolutely. They're not moving this year at all, right? Their lease is locked at BC Place for this year. Next year, we'll have to wait and see. Now, I got to think this is going to be one of those stories where news is going to trickle extremely slowly. We'll go months without hearing a thing.
Yeah, and then boom.
Yeah.
But Axel also said he's heard there has been quite a bit of interest already in New Orleans. So something to get.
There's always going to be interest from elsewhere. Again, my hope is that, it's someone that wants to work with what they have in Vancouver.
And wants to improve that.
Absolutely. My hope still goes to some sort of multi-club
model. Mine too.
Right? In my mind, that's kind of what works the best. It also, in my mind, is what's going to safeguard keeping Vancouver here. Because if you're a multi-club model, you've already got clubs around the world. You have no need to move them.
Exactly. Some owner from Europe or elsewhere. And plus, it will be good for Canadian soccer too, like using Vancouver as a development ground.
I hope so. Right. I got no problem if you get, say, one or two loanees this year per year from parent clubs. It doesn't necessarily mean they need to be first team. They could be on the MLS Next Pro team, things like that.
There's a limit anyway. So
that happened with Bayern Munich sending a couple of players over the past couple of years.
Yeah,
that's fine.
So, well, that answers your question. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, it's a holding pattern.
Yeah. So to the Northern Super League, which, by the way, kicks off in April.
We're under the 100 days.
Yeah.
They announced the 100 days, I think it was earlier this week or just late last week.
Yeah, so the Calgary Wild have named Lydia Bedford their first head coach, and she's the last head coach to be named on the NSL teams. All the NSL teams have coaches and players.
Lydia Bedford, though, I think it's a coup, not only for the Wild, but for the league.
Yeah.
This is an up-and-coming English coach. She was enticed by kind of like what Project 8 is kind of starting here. The fact that it's, in inaugural season, you're kind of coming into the ground floor. I think there was a lot to be excited. But this is, previously managed Leicester City women.
Yep. Arsenal women assistant coach.
She was also involved as an assistant
with Arsenal.
There you go.
And she was head coach of the Brentford under-18s.
That's it. Yeah. So up and coming coach, looking to kind of cut her own teeth, right?
Yeah. And this is a big get for Calgary Wild. She's only 37 years old, so she's like
Yeah.
one of the younger coaches.
As
And
far as Vancouver goes, we talked about the 5 players that signed and kind of like their advent calendar of players that they did in later December.
yeah,
No information since then. No new players. We're still waiting on stadium information.
yep. And
Getting a little bit late in the game for that, but we're still waiting.
we're still waiting. But the Rise will definitely post their updates in the coming weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same with the other.
There has been the information from the Rise has been more front office stuff. So people that are involved in player relations, things like that. They've hired a couple of people. I think there was also an assistant coach that was hired in there as well. But
Yeah, it's
nothing
mostly
in terms
staff.
of players or stadium. The stuff that we're waiting for.
Yeah, that's the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
So, in the CPL, the other Vancouver soccer club, Afshin Godby, their head coach, got the news yesterday. He has signed a new contract for 2025.
Yeah.
I
Vancouver
mean,
had kind of a very strange season last year. Very up and down.
they started well and then they
Yeah.
just never recovered.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's only a year.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, this is
that's
a
fine.
last chance to prove yourself type of deal.
I think that's what it is as well, right? It doesn't feel
Like you had time to build. I mean, we're a new club. We had time to build around the players that we have, to build a system. Haven't made the playoffs in our first 2 years. Now it's time to go make the playoffs.
absolutely.
That's how I see this deal.
Other thing we should mention, there was an article just posted on Canada Soccer Daily earlier today talking about potential site for a 9th club. Apparently, the mayor of Kingston, Ontario, has announced the construction of a soccer-specific stadium.
Yep. So yeah, Kingston. I think that's been on the list of CPL expansion.
Kingston and Windsor, are they kind of in
Windsor
that
as
same
well.
area? Because Windsor, I know the previous commissioner had expansion rights to that area, whether or not he wished to act on them. That whole weird lower Ontario thing all just seems to blend.
Windsor's west of Toronto, very close
is.
to the border. Kingston's east, close to the New York, Ontario border.
Is it okay? So yeah,
So 6-hour drive. As I'm looking here.
You think that you think about the number of people that live in that area, the population. You've already got York. You've already got Hamilton. That's a drop in the bucket. You can fit easily 1-2 more teams in that area if you decide.
Yeah.
I get it. You don't want to be a league that's concentrated in any one area of Canada.
Yeah.
But the population is concentrated there. So what are you going to do?
I mean, that whole area from Windsor to Montreal, Quebec City, that, you know, if you're not Canadian, if you're watching the show and you're not Canadian, that's where the majority of
Canadians live, right?
Yet there's no high-speed rail.
I actually took the train this year from Ottawa to Montreal. It's a beautiful trip. It's a nice trip, but
via rail,
and it's a nice train. But yeah, it's not high speed. It boggles my mind. That is one area where you should be putting in high speed rail. Edmonton, Calgary is another one.
Yeah, Vancouver to Portland.
Yeah,
as well. And could you imagine the Southsiders on a train to Seattle?
Oh, yeah, that'd be so great.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
So, yeah, that area. I mean, it's a hotbed for sports. Like a lot of junior hockey teams.
Yeah,
there, like the Kingston Frontenacs. I don't know if Windsor has one.
You think they'd have to,
or they might have had one in the past. Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Sarnia.
Yeah, Sarnia as well. Sarnia.
Sarnia. I mean, they're the number of players that have come out of that area is. I mean, it's a hotbed.
So it's no surprise like Windsor and Kingston are on the expansion list for the CPL, but we also need the team in Quebec.
You need the team in Quebec. I'm still very, very curious about Kelowna. I think that would be fantastic. I wish Edmonton could figure it out. But Edmonton just seems to be where soccer goes to die. I know. I grew up there. I remember the teams.
Yeah. You know all about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So CPL.
I need 2 hands to count the number of teams that have failed there.
But Vancouver hasn't really made any offseason moves other than extending Godby.
Yeah, that's
I mean, Ottawa has made a few moves, like extending players. They sold that one guy to.
and Pacific just signed a guy that was from Halifax, didn't they?
Yeah. Oh, back to some Vancouver Rise. This is some breaking news.
Oh,
They actually signed a player.
hey,
So yeah, breaking news on Terminal City FC. I'll bring it up here for y'all. Kristen Tynan, hometown pride, goalkeeper. Um, oh wow, yeah, that's quite a resume. TSS Rovers and Everton.
yeah. Also Queens University.
Very good school.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. This is out of the 6 players. This is the second goalkeeper that's now been
after
signed.
McCaslin.
That's right.
From WCFC Girls League.
Yep.
So yeah, got another goalkeeper.
Fantastic.
Although I think they'll fight over whoever gets to wear the number 1 though.
Well, that's not a problem with me. I have no problem if you have competition in all areas of the park, including goalkeepers.
Edgar, who is still he's our homie. He asks,
I just say
Nathan, you have
because there's snow on the ground for 9 months out of the year.
Yeah, and it's cold as hell.
Yeah. Edmonton. I remember back when you had the old indoor soccer leagues, when you had like the Brickman, I think the Eagles was another team and whatnot. And I don't know why soccer in Edmonton just does not work. They had a team in the old NASL as well. Like I remember like Edmonton playing Puerto Rico in times. And unfortunately with Edmonton, usually in these leagues is the northernmost city in all these leagues. So the travel really kind of kills them as well. That and the fact that there's not a lot of infrastructure. You've got stadiums, but you don't want to play a Commonwealth Stadium where the Edmonton Elk of the CFL play, because you'd get swallowed whole. Like, I mean, that stadium is what, 60,000?
Biggest stadium in Canada.
Yeah, like it would look like you have no crowd, even if you had like say 5,000, which let's say a CPL team would have. So you have Clark or you have Foot Field, and both of those stadiums are, I don't know, they're held together with baling wire and duct tape. They don't have a place to play, and the ownership that did exist in Edmonton, that was from the old NASL, did have the team in the CPL, but then they tried to do their own thing. They tried to have do an academy system, whatnot. There was antagonism with the league, so the owners decided, well, we don't want to be a part of this. No one else really wants to step in. It's just a weird market, and then on top of it, it's hockey town, right?
I mean, when the hockey team is doing pretty well right now, and they have 2 of the best players in the world, I mean, it's hard
even
not to
when they're not doing well. You take a look at the, say, mid to late 90s,
the 2000s, the pre-McDavid,
when the team was not doing well.
The early 2010s.
Hockey still survive. I mean, they sell out every game. It doesn't matter if the team's doing poor. It doesn't matter if they're doing great. That stadium is packed. And, I mean, you take, I grew up in a town just outside. I was born in Edmonton, but I grew up just outside of Edmonton. It's another city that's separated from Edmonton by a traffic light. Like if you missed it, you wouldn't realize you're in a different city. The joke where I grew up is that our number 1 export was NHL players.
That's where he who shall not be named in Vancouver was born.
Mark Messier.
Yeah, your guy, not my guy.
Jerome McGinley, Connery, I mean, you name it. You can go on and make a list of 50-odd players over the years. But if you're a kid growing up in the greater Edmonton area, you play hockey because you're doing it. That's what's available. You've got all the outdoor rinks because it's cold enough. You can have outdoor rinks. You know, you throw on your skates, or you walk down the street, throw on your skates, and you're playing there under the floodlights until who knows what time. It's soccer is big, but the season is so short because of geography.
Yeah, and the weather. It's a shame
It's
though
it's
because
just it's a tough place to put it. It's a shame. I know the CPL always keeps their eyes open in Edmonton, but you need a stadium first that is not crumbling, and you need owners that are willing to be there for the long haul because it's going to take a while to build a fan base,
yeah,
a fan base that is there day in day out.
yeah, and Edmonton has hosted national team games in the past,
They have
and
absolutely
it's
Ice
yeah,
others.
Alfonso Davies' hometown, and there's a reason why he left Edmonton to join the Whitecaps Academy at the age of 15.
Yeah, there. I love to see it work. I
I
just
do too.
I don't think it's in the immediate future.
It would have to take a long time. You have to build it from the ground up.
Who knows? Maybe you can you can entice Cates to throw some of the money in his cushions to put together a CPL team.
Yeah, and like all that 50-50 money or whatever.
Oh man, yeah, the Oilers 50-50. I mean, that would pretty much
That still blows my mind though, like
do
how
one of them,
massive
and
it
that would
is.
fund the team for a year.
Yeah, I'm like
50-50s, and you're getting $3 million, right?
yeah, I was watching the Oilers game against the Bruins last night, and I'm still mind blown on how big the 50-50 is.
I don't know what it is, but I know their slogan or whatever they say is that it's the largest 50-50 in
I
North
think it
America.
is. Yeah, I can't think
And
of
it's
another team.
always like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still can't believe it. Anyway, let's move over to Europe. So I'm not going to talk about the last few Chelsea games because the team is in a rut. 2 points out of 12. Not good enough at all. So is the honeymoon period over? And this is what I said, not in the title race for a reason.
Well,
Oh,
there's only one team in the title race.
well, two if you count Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, well, yeah. Hey, I guess I can't complain. They won 5-5.
Yeah, and
Them and
Chris.
Newcastle. Newcastle in the last 7 games has won all of them.
Yeah, more on Newcastle later.
Yeah.
And Chris Wood continues to turn into prime R9 for Nottingham Forest. Speaking of goals, that's the problem for Chelsea. I'm struggling to score goals. Tale as old as time. Nicholas Jackson. I know I'm a big defender in the guy, but in the last game against Crystal Palace, he missed like 3-2 very good chances, and they paid for it. And this is why Chelsea wanted to go after Victor Osimhen in the summer, and why they still need another striker, because unfortunately Jackson is too inconsistent. Mark Guiu is not ready yet; he's only 18, and Christopher Nkunku is not a striker, because when he plays striker, he doesn't press, and he's naturally a 10. And it looks like Cole Palmer is doing too much on his own at times. So the second halves also look poor. I don't know. It feels like Mauricio Pochettino is back, and Chelsea keep capitulating in the second half. And then Enzo Maresca, I don't know why he waits till the 80th minute to make a sub. Like a sub should be made at the earliest 60th minute, depending on the game. And the defense, the structure, it's starting to crack, especially with the news now that Wesley Fofana is likely to miss the entire season with a hamstring injury. Poor guy. Like he and Reece James will have the terrible luck with injuries. Though Reece James looks like he's getting back to fitness again and again. For the love of God, if Reece James plays more than 5 straight without getting hurt, Chelsea fans will celebrate like they've won a trophy.
If he plays 5 games in a season.
Yeah. So, in a rut. I'm not surprised this is happening because under a young coach like Enzo Maresca and a team that is young, this feels like this was bound to happen at some point this season. So it's just a matter of how the team bounces back from this, because these issues, this is a season where you learn and grow from these issues. And fortunately, finishing still needs to be addressed because you can't make top 4. Like, what if Jackson scored half the chances he missed over the last few games? And Joao Felix, I mean, he signed this guy to a 7-year contract. Let the guy play. Uh, like he's just come off the bench recently, and I'd rather see him than Christopher Nkunku because it looks like Nkunku's just again doesn't really fit what Maresca wants from him. So, in terms of the transfer window, more outgoing news like Axel Disasi, who had an absolute disaster class over the game against Ipswich, which I still can't believe happened. He looks like he could be on his way out for a decent fee. Nkunku, as mentioned, PSG are reportedly to be interested in him. He did come through the PSG academy, by the way.
I've heard that too.
Kieran Dewsbury Hall. Looking back, I mean, I was okay with the signing because it meant death, but it was a weird signing. Though Enzo Maresca denied that, he had anything to do with it because he was with him at Leicester. Because the guy's mostly been playing Conference League games.
Yeah.
Kearney Shukamawake, I don't know why Maresca doesn't use this guy. It's more attacking upside than Dewsbury Hall. Looks like he could be on loan to Strasbourg. And speaking of Strasbourg, Andre Santos, that Brazilian 20-year-old midfielder, is lighting it up there as an 8. And it's possible that Chelsea could recall him from midfield depth because Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez look tired at times. Dewsbury Hall isn't cut out for it. And Lavia is his injury history is concerning. I mean, why not give Santos a shot? And like he's calling it out at Strasbourg, so just let him see what he can do with the main team, Chelsea. And then center backs, Mark Gay is on the radar. Crystal Palace. Initial bid of 55 million is reportedly going to be rejected because it seems like Palace don't want to sell Gay this window, or if they want to sell him the next window, probably around 80 million, which I think is a bit much. And someone else who was at Crystal Palace is Trevor Chalobah, loaned out from Chelsea, which I still don't like the way they handled that. And given that Disasi and Badiashile aren't that great, and Fofana is out, Chelsea desperately need a right center back. And there is a recall clause in Chalobah's contract. Chalobah can play the right side. So why not? And
it makes more sense than looking for someone brand new. You've already got the guy in the pipeline, right?
Yeah, and Chalobah has been reportedly been very open to coming back to Chelsea and wants to make it work.
Cool.
And he's been, with the whole situation last summer, he handled it very professionally. Like, he didn't complain or anything. He just went with it.
Did the job.
So bring Chalobah back. Just do it. Because he can't get any worse than Badiashile and Disasi. Well, at least Badiashile in recent games has tried to get back to the form he was under Graham Potter. Chalobah, he's not like a godsend from above or anything like that. As I said before, he's a squad player, but he's a very good squad player. And he is a guy that can be relied on. So bring this guy back. You don't need to worry about his fitness or whatever fitting into a new system. Just bring him back. So one last thing for Chelsea. This is a dumb rumor. They're linked to Kobbie Mainoo of Manchester United. This is dumb because if Chelsea buy him, they'd have to sell Andre Santos. Oh, I love Kobbie Mainoo. I think he has great potential. But my question is, Manchester United, they're a dumpster fire. They're a mess. And why would they sell one of the players that is actually good? And
not only that, but Manchester United is kind of, sort of starting to calm the waters a little bit.
Yeah, they did draw Liverpool.
Right.
And why would they sell the future of their club?
Yeah, it makes no sense.
One of their rivals. It makes no sense. Like, this is a guy you build around because this guy could be what Moises Caicedo is today in a few short years.
Yeah.
So does it make sense from a Chelsea standpoint or a Manchester United standpoint? It's so stupid. It's a really dumb rumor.
Fair enough.
Edgar says, "Come on, Fulham." Well, Fulham did beat Chelsea on Boxing Day, which in the last minute. But Fulham are a good team. They're no slouch. So, I mean, they're like a dark horse top European place contender. Uh, yeah, 4 draws out of their last 5. That Anthony Robinson left back guy. That guy's really good.
Hey, Fulham's got 6 points in my team, so I can't complain.
Yeah, let's talk about your team. I don't think you want to talk about those last few games either.
Well, you were saying that you've picked up 2 points in the last out of 12. We've picked up 1.
Jeez.
Yeah. Now, this is a team that has been decimated by injury,
Yep.
by sickness, suspensions.
And
there was a practice last week where out of the players available, they had 7 players from the starting team.
Yeah, I heard that.
That's all that was available. Right? Like it's their last game, they had to play a goalkeeper, Austin, who's 25 years old, has never played for the first team because Vicario is still out with dealing with his surgery and his recovery.
Yeah.
You had Forster, who got sick. So this is a team that for I don't even know how long has had 16-year-olds on the bench consistently.
Poor kids.
I know, right? Like it's just I don't know how that works. Now, to their credit, they've gone out and signed a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
21-year-old Antonin Kinski from Slavia Prague. Now, this is a guy who last year was playing on loan in the 2nd division of the Czech Republic. This year, he was looking to go out on loan as well, thinking that he's not going to be the goalkeeper. Then the main goalkeeper gets injured. So he steps up. He ends up being their guy. Now, he did have a bit of a problem with a red card. He ended up getting suspended for 4 games. But since then, he has been on a heater. He's been flying. Slavia Prague is leading the Czech league after 19 games. They're ahead in first by 7 points. They've only lost 1 game this entire season, to his credit. And this is a guy that's been called up for every level of the youth Czech setup. He's been called up for the national team at 21 years old. He hasn't featured yet, but he has been called up. So this is a guy, and Tottenham said when they brought him in, we're not bringing him in to be the backup. We're bringing him in to fight for the top job, which, again, like I said, I got no problem with it. I know people want a dedicated number 1, number 2 when it comes to goalkeepers, and then everywhere else on the pitch, they want people to fight for their spot. I want them to fight for their spot no matter where they are. So if this guy is going to come in with the idea that I'm going to fight for that number 1 shirt, good. I'm happy with it. And the funny thing, I wouldn't be surprised if he slots in today because Tottenham is going to be playing their first leg of the
Cup,
Leagues Cup, Leagues Cup semifinals, Liverpool today.
Oh yeah,
I mean that's one hell of a game to come in for your first playing Liverpool. But hey, the last time they played Liverpool was at the beginning of this 4-game slide, and they lost 6-3. So they can score, but they can also get scored.
That crazy game. Yeah.
Well, that was it was a game that goalkeepers just fell asleep.
Yeah. Goalkeeping went out the window.
It wasn't a good game to watch all around. Now we're starting to see a few players possibly coming back from injury. Mikey Moore looks like he's back and ready to go. Richarlison he's had a few setbacks, but it looks like he might be sort of kind of getting there. We'll have to wait and see, but there are players coming back. And other than that, the only other news is Son Heung-min has had a 1-year extension done on his contract, so he is now going to be around to summer of 2026. There are other positions beyond goalkeeper. Tottenham is looking at filling center back. I mean, they've had to play with Archie Gray as a center back for the past number of games, and he's not a center back, right?
Yeah, he's a midfielder.
He's a midfielder who's been
Like
playing
center
right
back.
back now. He's getting a pretty eclectic resume, that's for sure. But with Van de Ven injuries, Romero injuries, you've been using him and Dragusin. Dragusin, to his credit, is done okay, but he can't do the whole job himself, right? Especially when there was question marks about, some of his soccer intelligence. So we got to wait and see with that. They are looking also at another attacking player. It looks like they've settled possibly on Rando Kolo Muani of PSG.
Chelsea have been linked to him too.
Yep, good player. He's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit at PSG. Now, this is a player they tried to bring in when he was at Eintracht Frankfurt. He had about a 75 million euro fee on him, I think it was. And that was still back when it was Fabrizio Paratici trying to bring him in. PSG won that battle, brought him in to PSG. Tottenham's going to make another bid. It looks like a deal with the player has already been done. It's now just a matter of talking with the team. So we'll have to wait and see about that. Other than that, it was kind of funny. Postecoglou was doing a press conference, and he was saying that even Mo Salah would struggle at Spurs.
That man looks broken. Like, he looks like...
You know what? I have a weird opinion about Postecoglou. I really like him. I think he can be a good man. I think he is a good manager. I think he is much, much too rigid in his thinking. He has a style of play. I get that. It's exciting to watch. It's kind of like heart and throat a little bit sometimes. But when you don't have the personnel to make it work, you have to adapt. And he's not willing to do that.
True.
Part of me says, you know what? Good for you to stick into your guns. The other side of me says,
adapt.
You have to, because it's not working. Right? I mean, This was a team that finished in 5th in his first year, got back into Europe. Thank you. You're just past New Year's and you're sitting in 12th. This is not Tottenham, or it shouldn't be. And I get it. Injuries, sickness, stuff out of your hands. But you have to adapt. You have to use what is at your disposal. And I get it. You're threadbare in the players you have. And that's not on you.
You're under Danny Levy.
You've got to use what you've got to use. So he's got to figure it out. Like I said, Leagues Cup today. Let's see. It's Liverpool. So
let's see.
Who knows, right? Apparently, Postecoglou also held talks with Danny Levy to just guarantee, that, hey, you're not going to let me go like you did Jose Mourinho, just ahead of a cup final, right? So it's kind of funny that he understands the history of the club and he understands the history of the guys who are running the club.
Yep. Oh boy, he's a smart guy in that sense.
Hey, like he said at the beginning of the season, I always win trophies in my second year. So
we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
As for Chelsea, it's Morecambe in the FA Cup third round Saturday, and then Bournemouth on Tuesday.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Both at Stamford Bridge.
Changes at West Ham.
Julian Lopetegui is done. He's finished at West Ham. This was inevitable. Like, we all saw this coming.
Yeah.
And it's very likely that his successor will be Graham Potter.
You know what? For the number of jobs that Graham Potter has been associated with since he's been out of a job, I'm kind of surprised that it's going to be West Ham where he lands.
Yeah, he turned down the Ajax job, by the way.
I know.
And he's probably enjoying his $200K a week severance fee.
Yeah, exactly. But it seems all this does, it screams to me of, I want to stay in London.
Yeah, I mean, he's making $200K a week in London, Byron City. I mean, sure, it's not the greatest. It's not like a paradise, but still.
Be interesting to see what he can do there, because I don't see a cohesive team at West Ham. It doesn't matter who you bring in, right?
Yeah, and David Moyes left and Declan Rice left. Just hasn't been the same team.
Yeah. There's got to be a weird bit of nostalgia when it comes to David Moyes. Because you remember that, he wasn't blowing anyone's tires, but there was stability, right?
Yeah, I mean, the team looked cohesive.
Yeah.
Right now, West Ham does not.
No, not at all.
They're 14th but in the Premier League.
Speaking of the League's Cup, we had the other semifinal first leg yesterday, Newcastle against Arsenal. Newcastle, I think they got a 2-goal lead in that tie now.
Yeah, and Arsenal had 23 shots and couldn't score one.
No, couldn't figure it out.
I mean, you can't always rely on set pieces for goals. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And Newcastle, credit to them. Isak and Gordon, what a duo.
Isak, I remember watching Isak when he was still playing at Malmo back in Sweden.
I remember hyping him up when he was at Sociedad.
Yeah. That was after Malmo, right?
Yeah, that's after Malmo.
Yeah. No, I can't remember what year of Football Manager was, but he was always my go-to striker. I would sign from
even
on the cheap.
Yeah, even in FIFA, he was seen as a potential wonder kid.
You know what? He's proven it. He's been phenomenal. I know he's wanted by everyone. Newcastle is not letting him go, and they don't have to.
They don't have to. Like, he's starting to be one of the best strikers in the world and in the Premier League.
Not only that, but now that Newcastle has kind of turned around, and 7 games, they're moving up. They're top 4 right now, I believe.
Yeah, and Arsenal, the way things are going, this could be another trophyless season. Sure, they still have the FA Cup, but
Arsenal has done great to stabilize themselves, to give themselves an identity, to bring in young and exciting players, but they need
a striker.
If they want to be elite, they need the final pieces, right? They're not there yet.
Sorry, but Kai Havertz, that's at a striker is not working. It's never going to work in the long term.
They have used him to good effect in other areas of the park, but when they try to put him at the top, that's never who he was. That's not his profile.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes he does well there, but that game against Newcastle did not look good at all. Barely noticed him.
Everyone there's always that weird outlier of games where sometimes you do well, but it's not the norm.
Yeah, and there's a lack of creativity. I mean, especially with Saka is injured. It feels like they're relying too much on Odegaard to create.
Yeah,
as well. Guys like Martinelli need to step up there.
Is Arteta the guy to do it? He is a good coach. He's a consistent coach, but is he the guy to hit that tiny upper percentage?
That's my question too. Like, he's got you this far, but
in 10, 20 seasons, he might do it once, he might do it twice. I don't know. But is he the guy that's going to get you up there consistently? I don't know yet.
I don't know about that. Like, he's gotten Arsenal.
There always seems to be some problem. And then according to him, it always seems to be blame others.
Blame everyone but me.
Yeah, right?
Like, got us from point A to point B, but can Arteta take them to the other side?
Exactly. I'm not saying no. It's been how many years, and I genuinely don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's Arsenal's credit that they've stayed with him. They've allowed him to get to this level of stability. But now you're at the point of, like, is he the guy to move us beyond this? I don't know. I do not know.
There are some people on Arsenal fan TV saying Arteta out. I think that's a bit much at this point.
Which is wild. It is kind of strange.
But after this season, and especially if they go trophyless again, consider the options.
Yeah.
This is interesting. So Linkin Park are reportedly, according to The Sun and many German outlets, to play the halftime show for this year's Champions League final in Munich. And in recent years, Champions League finals have had musical acts, preferably, seems like before the games. Last year, I don't know can't remember who they had. I know in 2022 they had Camila Cabello, where she got booed off pretty much the pitch. 2018 was probably the most memorable one with Dua Lipa, and One Kiss has pretty much become Liverpool's second anthem ever since. But for starters, I am a massive Linkin Park fan. They have been one of my favorite bands since I was 13. This is the band that has been the soundtrack to my life. I'm very happy that they moved forward after the loss of Chester Bennington in 2017. They're touring again. New album's pretty decent. But as much as I love this band, I don't think we need halftime shows in soccer. I'm sorry. Maybe that's just a traditionalist in me.
I'm indifferent. I mean, the halftime is a great time to, go make a sandwich, get ready for that, get ready.
Yeah, that's why.
I would rather watch people talking about what we've seen, right?
Yeah.
Like the analysis. I don't need the musical act. I've
Before the game, it makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm not against it. It's not going to interest me. I'm not going to watch it. So,
well, I am because
it's Linkin Park. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not against it. I'm not for it. Okay, that's nice.
Me, it just feels so Americanized. I know, like I'm Canadian. Oh, you're not European, but it just feels like an NFL thing. Like the NFL and the halftime show are synonymous.
It brings in a different kind of fan.
Yeah,
let's be honest, there are people that will be interested in this because Linkin Park is playing. Now they might only tune in
for Linkin. Yeah, I see people just say they're going to tune in just for Linkin Park,
right? But you know what? If that's what they want to do, it's fine with me. You're not changing the product. You're not changing the game, right? You're doing stuff that is outside of the game. So I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah.
And if you start changing the game, I'll have an opinion.
Yeah. And
like if it was all of a sudden they start playing a mixture of teams with like musical people playing, all of a sudden see Ice Show Speed shows up and starts running the ball. I'd have a few things to say about that. But
at least it's not KSI doing the halftime show or Ice Show Speed. I mean, Linkin Park is a legendary band, whether you like them or not. So, I don't like halftime shows. I rather have them do it before the game, which makes more sense. But what the hell, I'll watch it.
Fair enough.
Because it's Linkin Park. And by the way, their bassist Dave is a massive LAFC fan. He's often seen at the games.
Is he part of like that whole kind of consortium that owns them, or
no? But he's like a season ticket holder. He's always wearing an LAFC hat when they're performing, so he might wear it.
That's cool.
I'm not sure about the other members of the band. But I do remember the late Chester Bennington was an Ipswich Town fan, of all teams.
Ipswich Town?
He's from Phoenix, or he was from Phoenix.
Interesting.
And the rest of the band did promotional stuff with Bayern Munich many years ago.
Okay.
So it makes more sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, last thing here. Big news out of France, other than the fact that Jean-Marie Le Pen, the infamous French politician, passed away.
Yeah.
Which so funny seeing all those people celebrate in the streets like they won the World Cup. But other big news, Didier Deschamps, their men's national team manager, is going to leave after the 2026 World Cup. And I would like to think his successor will be Zinedine Zidane.
First, let's talk about Deschamps. I mean, he will have been the longest serving manager on the French men's national team.
He's been there like a decade.
He is synonymous. I mean, forget the time as a coach, but as a player as well. Like it seems like it's been decades with his name being associated with his team in one way or another. I don't know, in my lifetime.
He was a captain in the 98 team. So
yeah, exactly, right? I think it's time.
I think he feels that it's time.
I think he feels it's time. And I also think that he's not looking to go to a job after this. This is retirement.
He'll just say peace out.
Or he'll join Arsene Wenger working with FIFA or something like that, right?
Yeah, and but on the football side, it feels like it's time too, because that last Euros for France was painful to watch.
France needs a shakeup. I agree with you. I think Zinedine Zidane would be a very interesting choice. I think it would be a very good choice. And this is a guy that has been out of a job for a while by choice. Teams have wanted him, but he's been waiting for something, and this feels like what he's been waiting for.
And I think he has said that he really wants the France job
Yeah,
if it's
right.
available.
So here you go. I think it's an interesting choice. I think with Deschamps also announcing right now, it gives time for. I mean, because we're a year and a half out, so it gives them time to figure something out. They got a lot of time.
I mean, France.
The thing is if it's another year and a half, like how long does Zidane want to sit without a job? It's already been a long time.
That's the thing. He's been out of a job since what, 2021, 2022?
Something like that, right? Like at that point, it's going to be what, 5 years? That's a lifetime.
Yeah. So, I mean, France has a chance to make one last hurrah with Deschamps. I mean, other than the Euros, I mean, they went to the last 2 World Cup finals, have been one of the best teams in the world. But I guess Deschamps feels like his time is coming to an end there.
Fair enough.
And if it's at Zidane or someone else, it'll be interesting to see who his successor is.
Absolutely.
So that'll conclude this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Give me a follow on Twitter at JoshuaRay00. Nathan is at NDirt. Podcast is at Terminal City FC. Feedback and constructive criticism is always welcome. And more articles obviously will be published about soccer. And before we go, for those who don't know, I have been selected for this thing called the Botchford Project by the Vancouver Canucks and their PR staff. It's not soccer. It's hockey. I mean, I have covered hockey in the past. And this is a great opportunity because, it's named after Jason Botchford, who fortunately passed away in 2019. Was from the Vancouver area, know Vancouver sports. You know Jason Botchford.
Yeah.
Canucks writer, brilliant storyteller, fiery opinions. Lost him way too soon. So the Canucks, Jeff Patterson, Thomas Drance, and his widow, Catherine, set up a media mentorship program to help like the next generation of hockey sports writers, content creators, whatever, and give them what it's like to cover a Canucks game and publish a story on the Canucks website. So that's what I'll be doing. That's what the Botchford Project is on the 21st of January. Excited for it. It's going to be weird not covering a Whitecaps match or a soccer match, but excited for it. Notable names that have done the program. First, starting with Area 51, Adam Kierszenblat. I think I said his name right. Who now works for the Hockey News. David Quadrelli, Nation Network. Chris Faber, who works for the Canucks. Noah Strang of Daily Hive. Those many people who on this program are now working in sports or sports media full time. Yeah. So this is an opportunity of a lifetime.
And as we've said, congratulations too.
And I'm very thankful that I will experience this as well. So we'll end it on that note. That concludes this week's episode. Peace out.
Take care.